Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show, live from Bakersfield, California. We are out here for the final leg of our Megyn Kelly live tour. You could still get tickets if you go to megynkelly.com. There's a few left. Bakersfield tonight, Anaheim tomorrow, and then we finish in Phoenix in Glendale, Arizona with Erica Kirk and Walter Kern on Saturday night. It's beautiful out here, I have to say. You know, every time you come out to California, you're reminded why people live out here. And then you remember like Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, and you say, no, snap out of it, snap out of it. No beautiful mountainous views in the distance are worth that. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Do doctors have Black Friday sales? Do they? It's a good question. The doctors at Brick House Nutrition do. They just announced their Black Friday 30% off sale. That's their biggest of the year. The most impressive health and nutrition products in the industry are now 30% off. Like Lean, the doctor-formulated weight loss supplement for people who want to lose meaningful weight without injections. And 30% off Creatone. Creatine, designed just for women, to help you look leaner, in shape, and toned without extra dieting or exercise. Even 30% off Field of Greens, a super fruit and vegetable drink they say was shown in a university study to actually slow aging. Yes, every Brick House product from Better Sleep to Superior Collagen is 30% off. But hurry, because these Black Friday deals go fast. Visit brickhousesale.com and save 30%. That's brickhousesale.com. One more time, brickhousesale.com. And we now are going to kick things off with Kelly's Court. Our panelists today, Mark Eiglarsh, Ashley Merchant, and Phil Holloway, all of whom have extensive trial experience. So unlike most of those other legal segments you see elsewhere, we actually have real trial lawyers who know of what they speak. Great to see you all. And thanks to all of you guys for doing the tour with me on earlier stops. It's wonderful to have you.
It was awesome to be there. It was so fun. I think the show was amazing. Everybody should definitely go.
Yeah, I love the question and answer period.
Yes.
Great.
So Mark saw Mark in Miami and saw Phil and Ashley in Atlanta. And Ashley Merchant is a statuesque model in real life. I only see you from the neck up. So
Right,
I didn't even
true.
recognize you when I saw the real you. You are fabulous, even more fabulous in person than on television.
Well, so are
Saying
you.
something.
Mark and I
Without a
never
doubt.
get accused of being such a statuesque model.
Correct.
You too, Phil. You're hot. We all know that. I mean, that was written into the record before we even started. Okay, there's so much to discuss, and I actually have some exclusive reporting on the James Comey case that I'm going to use to clarify the record that's been misreported in a second. But let's just set it up for the audience what we're dealing with here. So the acting U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Lindsay Halligan, was appointed by this DOJ, and she indicted Letitia James and also James Comey. And James Comey is accused of lying to Congress about when he purported to say, I never authorized anyone to leak on the matters of the Trump investigation or the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email use. He said that under oath, and the theory is you did authorize somebody to leak. It was your good pal, Daniel Richman, who you brought on at the FBI as a special governmental employee, and you absolutely did use him to leak about, in particular, the Hillary investigation. So that's what the case is about. Comey's trying to get out of it any way possible, and he's not only got an argument that substantively he didn't do the things that they're arguing he did. He's got an argument that A, she wasn't properly appointed, and that's going to be argued and heard by a different judge. But B, he's now challenging the actual four corners of the indictment as inappropriate and not properly styled, not properly brought before the grand jury. And that hearing got very heated on Wednesday. I'm going to play you a little from CNN's Caitlin Pollance, who is their legal correspondent, I think, on the drama, she said, when she says it was revealed, because just as a background for the listening audience, originally there were 3 counts that Lindsay Halligan proposed against James Comey. The grand jury was ready to return an indictment on 2 of the 3, but they weren't convinced on the 3rd. And so she struck the 3rd and went back to the grand jury, and they approved those 2 and said, yeah, let's go. Now there's a question about whether she did in fact go back to the grand jury and get them to bless what would be the final indictment with just the 2 counts that we know the grand jury did like and did believe in. And the judge, this wasn't even brought up by Comey's lawyer. This was the judge who thought there were like missing minutes in the like there wasn't enough time for you to, after they struck the one count, for you to redraft the indictment, get back with a clean indictment with the 2 counts. There's some funny business going on. Did this grand jury actually bless it or didn't they? And here is CNN's Caitlin Pollins describing the in-scene courtroom experience yesterday, SOT 30.
I've been in a lot of these hearings in politically charged cases over the years. This was gobsmacking. It was absolute silence. I've said before in this case that there have been moments where people gasped, but this was, you could see the entire room shift. And from then on, this was the only thing that was mattering in that case. This is the only thing that the judge and that others were talking about.
And I'll give you one more. This is Trump 1.0 White House lawyer Ty Cobb and his reaction to the news yesterday, SOT 31.
So that hasn't been dismissed yet or thrown out or the nullity been recognized. I do think if the ruling is that there is no indictment, there's no indictment to dismiss. Only if the indictment is dismissed would the 6-month rule for representation come into play. So what happened today is very significant in that regard legally. But yes, Comey has, the misconduct issues, the miscarriage of justice issues, the denial of due process issues, the vindictiveness issues. This case is dead. This case is never going to get to trial. And Comey will, never be held accountable as the government has desired and as the president ordered Bondi to see to.
Okay. And here's the last point I'll make before we get into it. I have exclusive reporting here on what actually happened in court yesterday. The entire grand jury, I've been reliably informed by a source who's in a position to know, did see the final indictment with just the 2 counts. They did see it, review it, and approve it. And I'm told that there is a transcript of that proceeding which will prove exactly that. The magistrate judge then confirmed with the foreperson on the record in open court at the time they returned the true bill that everyone on the grand jury had voted on that indictment that has 2 counts. So I believe that this entire issue will be cured as soon as these magistrate judges, the magistrate judge and the judge above him, the district court judge, get a look at what actually happened with the judge and the grand jury overseeing these 2 counts. I think it's all going to be cured. I think my belief is this is a misunderstanding. But let's proceed as though it isn't a misunderstanding and that she didn't cross her T's and dot her I's and she just had the grand jury vote on I'm picturing like a piece of paper that has 3 counts. They crossed out 1 and just kind of let the 2 the jury had earlier approved when it was 2 of 3 stand. Is it an okay true bill? Does the prosecutor have a problem on her hand? We'll do ladies first. Ashley?
I think it's a fine one. I think the indictment's fine, and I think it would stand. Doesn't mean I wouldn't argue for dismissal as a defense lawyer, but I think it's one of those situations where you could put an indictment on a napkin. I mean, if you wanted to write it out, you could. There's no rule that says it has to be in a certain order or look a certain way. So as long as that language is the exact same, and it sounds like it is, as long as the language is the exact same, if they went and they made what we would call a Scrivener's change, that's just a change, changing the heading, changing the title, changing the numbers, I think it's completely fine. And it's interesting because in the Trump indictment in Georgia, they actually had the numbers changed. So we had this same issue and it never made it to court. The numbers were actually changed when they scanned the indictment. Because
what do you mean the numbers changed?
Yeah, so it was one of those racketeering indictments. And so they had different numbers for predicate acts. And the numbers actually, when they scanned it, we had this whole controversy. It never really came to light, but we had it internally about the e-filing system in the court system. When they scanned the indictment that was actually returned, it changed the page numbering and the actual numbering. And we were trying to figure out, was that in front of the grand jury? Was it not? And everybody said, oh, well, it's just a Scrivener's error. And I think this is the exact same thing. It does, as long as it doesn't change the language of the indictment, it's going to stand.
What do you guys make, Mark and Phil, of the fact that the judge raised this? This wasn't even raised by defense counsel. And the same judge then asked the defense counsel, do you think Lindsay Halligan is just Trump's puppet? And even the defense lawyer was like, no, I'm not going to go that far. I mean, to me, it just shows this judge is not a fan of this prosecutor and maybe this prosecution, but it doesn't bode well for Team Trump in that courtroom that he's raising these things himself and then calling her names and getting the defense attorney to trying to get the defense attorney to sign on to those names. I'll start with you, Phil.
All right. So look, this is really much ado about nothing. If you can't win on the facts, you attack the law. If you can't win on the law, you attack the prosecutor. And in this case, Halligan and her team are having to deal with not only the defense raising these issues, which is understandable, but she's also having to deal with a judge who, in my opinion, has abandoned his role as a neutral arbiter, okay, and has basically thrown in with the defense team in attacking the prosecutor. This is a non-issue for all the reasons that Ashley set out, but I would also add that Rule 6F of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure say that as long as a quorum of the total grand jury has approved the charges, it can be returned in open court by the foreperson, okay? So this was just an administrative thing. The entirety of the grand jury voted yes, there is probable cause as to 2 of those charges, and those are the ones that were filed. It's absolutely not an issue whatsoever. The court reporter even had an email that confirmed that that all this is the case, and that the grand jury foreperson's open court statements support that this is exactly how it went down. This document that was filed in the court, these 2 charges were reviewed by the grand jury. They gave it a thumbs up, a true bill. That's it. If this judge decides he's going to throw it out or do something else with it, then obviously the government will have the right to appeal, because that would be absolutely grounds for reversal. This is absolutely astonishing that federal judges are abandoning their judicial role in this way.
And it would be, just to be clear, Mark Eiglarsh, devastating to the government's case if these judges, the magistrate judge and the district judge above him, find this to be fatal because the statute of limitations has run on Comey. So if they can actually convince this judge that there was an irregularity that kills the existing indictment, Comey's off. He's off scot-free.
That's correct. So my analysis hinges upon what the facts are, and we're gonna play hypothetical. And the original story was it was just the grand poobah of the grand jury and one other grand juror who approved the final version. Let's assume that those are the facts for one moment. I also don't take exception to a judge stepping in, because my feeling is a judge is always there to ensure that due process is happening. And put aside Comey for a second. Let's say this is one of your loved ones in federal court, and you learned, not these particular facts, but you learned somehow the whole grand jury didn't approve the final indictment, that it was just the head guy and someone else with him who approved that final document. You're doggone right you'd have me argue that there's a defect there and something
Can I just
needs
ask
to be
you that,
done.
Mark? Sorry to interrupt you. Can I just ask you?
Sure.
Totally fair case, and I agree with you. The judge has the obligation to make sure the proceedings are fair. But would it also be the case, even if the grand jury, no one's disputing that the grand jury approved these other 2 counts. The full grand jury approved these other 2 counts. Right. They didn't approve the third. They crossed off the third. How does that render the original 2 as required for another vote, as they needed another vote? They already approved those 2 counts.
Yes, and it might not, right? Just so we're clear, legally, a court may find that it's totally okay. But the argument will be that the law requires the entire body of the grand jury to approve whatever's ultimately there for prosecution. And if you cut corners because you want to get Comey, be prepared to have the law changed so they can cut corners on someone you really love and care about.
Mm-hmm. And again, just to remind the listening audience, my exclusive reporting today is that they did not cut corners. They actually did have the entire grand jury approve the new 2-count indictment, and that was all on the record with the magistrate judge, that the magistrate judge confirmed with the foreperson on the record in open court that everyone on the grand jury voted on the indictment that has 2 counts, which does kind of, I don't know whether it's the same magistrate judge that they're in front of right now. I don't think it is. I think it's a different magistrate judge that handled the grand jury proceedings. But I mean, that does sort of make you wonder if that's there and the magistrate judge, let's say she can just show the current magistrate judge and the district court judge, Ashley, here's the transcript that shows the earlier magistrate judge who dealt with the grand juror asking that the foreperson, did the entire grand jury approve this? And that foreperson saying, yes, they did, that the entire grand jury approved of the indictment that has just the 2 counts. That should be the end of this nonsense, no?
It should totally be the end of this nonsense. And because there's other judges bringing it up, they're trying to undermine the indictment. They're trying to undermine the entire process. And that gets out. The world is watching. The world is listening. And so any juror, potential juror on this case is going to know about that. They're going to have heard that. It's all over the news. So it's really prejudicial when a judge is trying to intervene in such a manner and really put their thumb on the scales of justice.
Mm-hmm. So now that's not the only basis. You heard a little in Ty Cobb's analysis there, that soundbite, for the potential dismissal of this indictment. There's that procedural alleged snafu that had CNN all a Twitter. But there's also a motion to dismiss this thing for vindictive prosecution. And this is where things get interesting because they do have way more than your average defense attorney could ever hope to have to suggest there was some sort of personal animus behind Comey's indictment in the form of Donald Trump's hatred, it's mutual, of James Comey. So here is this. To establish prosecutorial vindictiveness, a defendant must show through objective evidence that 1, the prosecutor acted with genuine animus toward the defendant, and 2, the defendant would not have been prosecuted but for that animus. The defense is arguing that President Trump harbors genuine animus toward Comey based on his speech and based on Trump's arbitrary personal bias. And they're talking about the number of times the Comey has been critical of Trump, and they say there's a causal connection between President Trump's animus and this prosecution, and it's clear. And then they go on to cite that September 20th Truth Social post that we talked about quite a bit on whether this was intentionally posted by Trump on Truth Social or was meant to be a private DM, direct message to Pam Bondi, because it wound up coming down. He took it down. But just to remind the audience, he wrote in that post, Pam, I've reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Shift, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing's going to be done. Lindsay Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you, speaking of Pam Bondi here, a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice, indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. President Donald J. Trump. It's actually still up. It wasn't taken down, but it was posted, and there was speculation about whether it was intentionally posted publicly or was meant to be a private. In any event, it's not all that helpful, I guess I'd say, Phil, to the defense in trying to argue there's no animus behind the indictment.
No, it's certainly not helpful. And many of us who have been an observer of Donald Trump for all these years have consistently said that sometimes the things that he says, he makes himself his own worst enemy in many ways, and saying things like this publicly the way he did was a mistake. I think anybody can admit that. But more than one thing can be true at the same time, Megyn. He can have animus towards Comey and vice versa. That can be true, but it can also be true that Comey would have, and I would say should have, been prosecuted irrespective of who the president is. And to meet his burden of proving this vindictive and selective prosecution, Comey's got to demonstrate that there were similarly situated other people that did not get prosecuted. Now, obviously, there's not that many people you can find that would be quite similarly situated to the specific facts that we have in this case. But the evidence of Comey's guilt, in my view, is overwhelming, okay? So that's why I said earlier, if you can't win on the facts, then you attack the law. And if you can't win on the law, then you attack the prosecutor. And this is what they're doing. They're trying to say that the prosecutor had ill motives. So 2 things can be true. You can hate, Trump can hate Comey, and because Comey is guilty, that can be the sole basis for the prosecution. So I think on balance, an appeals court, I think the trial court may very well toss this out, but I think an appeals court would probably rule with the administration.
One of the things they're getting ready to argue on team defense, Mark, is that the communications between Comey and Daniel Richman, who's a Columbia law professor and lawyer, who Comey brought on as a special governmental employee at the FBI for some year and a half while Comey was running the FBI for the express purpose of, I guess, advising him, but also to deal with the press. And the evidence that Richmond did deal with the press to massage coverage of Comey is replete. I mean, it's legion. It's all over the place. He was talking to many, many reporters about James Comey, about how James Comey was totally right with everything he did around Hillary Clinton. He was right not to indict her. He was right to nonetheless come out a week before the election of 2016 and say, I found new documents relating to her homebrew server on Anthony Weiner's laptop. All the things were right. Comey was right. And he was using Richmond to do all of this. But Richmond was a lawyer. And one of the things we're told the defense is getting ready to do is argue that possibly there was some sort of breach of the attorney-client privilege, like the FBI had a strike force that looked at all the documents between Comey and Richmond, but then possibly you're supposed to have like a separate FBI agent if you're going to proceed with an indictment, go and testify before the grand jury, and it's possible they didn't do that they used a guy who had seen some of the privileged communications. If you've dealt with this before, I'd be interested in, and do you think that's a deal killer for this indictment?
I've never heard anything like that. Doesn't mean it's not valid. I've never spoken with Comey. I don't know what his defense is. I know that the obligation of his attorneys is to argue everything that could possibly get him off of these charges. That's their job. I think on that other issue that you talked about, it's a very low bar to meet whether the prosecution has a good faith basis to go forward, and that argument that they're only bringing it because there's animus towards him. Listen, I wouldn't be going to trial at all ever if we judged based on how prosecutors felt about my clients. They generally don't particularly care for them. But that's really in fact, Antonio Brown this week, I got a lot of earful from prosecutors. But the truth is, that doesn't matter. There's got to be both tenets there. The animus needs to be there. Plus, they're only bringing this because they just don't like him. And here, whether there's a valid defense or not, there's enough at least to argue that there is enough that he
But Mark,
did
would
to
it be
justify
enough
the
that
charges.
the president didn't like him as opposed to the prosecutor?
No, we're talking prosecution. I mean, no, it's got to be prosecutors. Prosecutors are the ones who bring charges, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, well, this politician spoke loudly about this person, and so that's going to carry the day. Heck no. It's got to be these prosecutors hold him in the worst regard, and they went after him not because he violated the law, but because they have personal vendetta against him, and just can't stand him.
There's no evidence of that.
I don't think that that's there.
There's no evidence of that. Okay, well, I want to keep going because there's a lot more to get to. Michael Wolff, who's been all over the news this week because he was BFFs with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, it's like 1 week ago today, I think it was 1 week or 8 days ago today, we had an exclusive report on Michael Wolff and tapes that we had heard personally of Michael Wolff dealing with Jeffrey Epstein and this former Obama White House counsel. And Michael Wolff was more of an advisor to Jeffrey Epstein than he was independent journalist trying to document anything about him. I mean, he had lots of thoughts on how Jeffrey Epstein needed to rehabilitate himself and, could come clean with the public and sort of return to polite society, and was advising him on how CNN might be asking Trump about Jeffrey Epstein at a debate, and on it went. Well, Michael Wolff is making a living, like single-handedly out of talking about the Trumps, thanks in large part to his talks with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, he's tried to parlay that plus his profile of Trump in Fire and Fury into a whole career as a Trump whisperer. Meanwhile, Trump hates him. But anyway, one of the things he did was he went on a podcast with the Daily Beast, and he started talking about Trump and Melania and the beginning of their relationship. This is July 28th. This is from Michael Wolff's Instagram, but the Daily Beast also wrote up this story. And listen here to what he said, Sat 35.
This sham marriage, trophy marriage, hardly any marriage at all, is part of the scam he's pulled on MAGA. But I think that's in danger of being undermined now by the Epstein story, in which Melania plays no small part. Epstein told me that Trump and Melania got together, had sex for the first time on his airplane, Epstein's airplane. Melania met Trump through the same modeling circles through which Epstein and Trump procured dates. And after he got married, he continued to cheat on Melania, in part through his Epstein connections, and often with Epstein as the wingman.
Okay. So he not only posted that on Instagram, but he talked to the Daily Beast, and there was a podcast in which he said similar things. And the Daily Beast took down that podcast after hearing from Melania Trump's lawyers. But Michael Wolff did something else. Michael Wolff, instead of backing down, filed his own request and action, a legal action, a case, for declaratory judgment, which is kind of what you do when you know you're about to get sued and you'd rather be the plaintiff than the defendant. You beat the would-be plaintiff into the court and you say, I'm the plaintiff and I demand a judgment saying I did nothing wrong. So that's what he did. And he's in there now saying, I didn't do anything wrong. I did not defame anybody and I want a judgment to that effect. And he's going after Melania, standing by what he said in that clip. Anybody have thoughts on whether what he said in that clip is per se defamatory or could form the basis of a defamation case, given that he started it with Epstein told me?
Well, if I can take that first, Megyn, look, what he said, and you've got to, setting aside the absolute atrocity, like the atrociousness of what was said, I think it's just reprehensible that the things that he said. But setting that aside, you have to look specifically at the very words that were used. And this that we just played in that slot is a mixture, if you will, of opinions and allegations of fact. And in order to prevail on a defamation claim, it has to be essentially a false statement of fact. And of course, there's some nuances to that. A false statement of fact, and the burden of proof is on the plaintiff. In this case, it would be Melania to prove that those were false and in fact defamatory. So you mentioned that he's gone to court first. There's a type of law called a SLAPP statute, and it stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. And the word strategic is in there for a reason, because as you pointed out, this allows the would-be defendant to go into court first. And then he has to prove, now that he's the plaintiff though, Wolff is going to have to prove that his comments were not defamatory. So he's basically changed the burden of proof, if you will. I think it was probably not a good idea to do that. The best thing to do would have been to just take it down and move on, as the letter from Melania Trump's lawyers asked them to do. That would have been the smarter thing. But now we're in court and we're going to have judges and all sorts of people back and forth debating, is this a fact or is this an opinion? Oh, and by the way, if all we're doing is regurgitating the words of Jeffrey Epstein, then Wolff is going to say, technically, my statement is true because this is exactly what Epstein said.
And
but
that's why this is going nowhere.
If you're repeating defamation.
So you agree, Mark, that's a get out of jail free card, like a total carte blanche for Michael Wolff to say whatever he wants, as long as it's prefaced with Jeffrey Epstein told me?
Yes, and as we all learned when we went to law school, the First Amendment gives you wide latitude to spew outrageous and offensive speech. The question is whether this is primarily opinion, and it looks that way. There's a few facts that he'll say, well, I said in good conscience. It doesn't mean that they're actually true. He doesn't have to be truthful. Again, she has to prove actual malice, that he knew it was false, or a reckless disregard of the truth. It's a very high standard, as you have learned, Megyn. So I don't think this lawsuit goes anywhere against this guy. It doesn't mean that I'm in favor of what he says, and it doesn't mean that it's factual. I have no idea if what he's saying is truthful. But I love our First Amendment.
Yep.
And it gives us wide latitude to say a lot of things. Well, you don't always have to be right.
Yeah,
I'm just rereading the little transcript from that Instagram post, which is at issue. And Melania's threat letter to him raises what he said to the Daily Beast and what he said in Instagram. And here's the beginning. Before he gets to Epstein told me, Ashley, he says, this sham marriage, trophy marriage, hardly any marriage at all, is part of the scam Trump, has pulled on MAGA. But I think that's in danger of being undermined now by the Epstein story, in which Melania plays no small part. So all that precedes Epstein told me that they got together and so on. And by the way, he also went on and said some very terrible things about Trump wanting to sleep with his friends' wives and setting traps up to get them to sleep with them and so on. And now Trump is not the one threatening a lawsuit. It's Melania about what he said about her. I don't know if that's enough to call their marriage a sham, a trophy marriage, hardly any marriage at all. part of a scam he's pulled on MAGA, and I think it's in danger of being undermined now by the Epstein story, in which Melania plays no small part. Melania plays no small part in the Epstein story. Anyway, your thoughts, Ashley?
This is a game of chess. That's what he's doing. This is not about defamation. This is about discovery. He wants to be able to depose people, and he wants to be able to access documents in the public space and get discovery, get depositions, interrogatories, those type of thing. If there's a lawsuit, you can get discovery, and that's what he wants.
So what happens now? Because Melania Trump has not yet responded to the lawsuit. And a lot of times, as you guys know, as lawyers, you have a lawyer send what we call a nastygram to somebody, as Melania Trump's lawyers did, like, take that shit down or you're going to have a legal problem on your hand. And you're kind of expecting them to do what the Daily Beast did, which is do it, take it down. Instead, Michael Wolff doubled down, filed his own declaratory judgment action in which he is entitled to discovery. And you might be having an oh shit moment if you're Melania's lawyer, Ashley. So what do you expect them to do now?
That's why I say it's a game of chess, because you are having an oh shit moment. You're like, now he is going to get discovery. He said checkmate. When you filed that, he said, I'm calling your bluff, and now I'm going to double down and I'm going to be able to get discovery. And that's a win for him, because then he gets to talk about it. Then he gets that information. And if you don't give discovery, or you try to avoid a subpoena or something like that, he can spin that. So I think that is what his game is here. The smartest move is to try and get rid of this as fast as possible.
No,
okay,
but
let me
why
ask
would
you
it
this,
go
because
away?
the Daily Beast.
Why would it go away? We're talking
Mark,
about him.
let me tee this
Yeah.
up. The Daily Beast, like I said, had a very different reaction. Not only did they apologize, but they pulled the story entirely. The Daily Beast recently published a story. They posted this on their website. Headline: Melania Trump very involved in the Epstein scandal. Author, meaning citing Michael Wolff, based on an interview with Michael Wolff. Upon reflection, we've determined that the article did not meet our standards and has therefore been removed from our platforms. In response to a letter from the First Lady's attorneys, the Daily Beast has also removed a portion of the episode of the Daily Beast podcast titled Trump's Epstein Scandal Can't Stop, Won't Stop, referencing the First Lady. The First Lady points to her best-selling book, Melania, as the definitive account of her life story. We apologize to the First Lady and to our readers. Does that play in, Mark Eiglarsh, in the attempt by Melania's lawyers to show, Michael Wolff is the source for all of this. The Daily Beast already backed down and apologized and retracted.
Okay, it plays well for Melania in the court of public opinion, because people like you give the impression, I think, or people are getting the impression that the Daily, what is it, Beast? Mail? Which one? Yeah, Beast.
Beast.
Somehow then pulled it because what he's saying might be false. They could be pulling it for many other reasons. They don't want the hassle. They don't need the lawsuit. It's going to be costly. It doesn't mean, in fact, what they didn't say was, we're pulling it because he used our media outlet to spew lies. They didn't say that. They just said, it doesn't meet our standards, which is a nice way also of backing down and saying, we don't need the hassle. He wants his name to continue to be talked about. I didn't know who this guy was. I know now because we're talking about it. He doesn't want to go away. He loses his 15 minutes.
Oh no, my team informs me he's huge on Instagram. Yeah. Like this gross trolly kind of guy who's like never seen a journalism line he doesn't want to cross, in my opinion, has got this huge following because his whole business is Trump sucks. And I know all the ways in which he sucks, and I'll tell you all the evil secrets of Trump.
He wants to stay relevant. This is keeping him relevant.
Yeah.
That's right. So maybe it was a mistake for Melania's lawyers to send the nastygram to him because they opened the door. We'll have to see how they respond. Let's keep going because there's news on Diddy. The latest is as follows. This is via ABC. LA Sheriff's Department investigating new sexual assault allegations against Diddy. The LA County Sheriff's Department says it's looking into new allegations. They say they've received a report on Friday from a police department in Florida, Mark, your backyard, where the alleged victim lives. But this is the LA County Sheriff's Special Victims Unit is going to investigate it. A spokesperson for the Largo, Florida PD told ABC the department assisted in this investigation happening in California with whether Combs sexually assaulted a man in 2020. There's a 10-year statute of limitations, so we would be within it. The victim's name is redacted on the report, but music producer Jonathan Hay identified himself as the complainant in social media posts that have since been removed. Hay also identified himself as one of the John Does who filed a civil lawsuit against Combs in July. According to the police department, Combs pleasured himself in front of Hay and asked Hay to, quote, finish him off. Forgive me, listening audience. In February 2020, Hay said he did not respond because he was in shock, and that Combs then tossed a, semen-stained shirt at him. It also details an alleged incident in March of 2021, so a separate one, in which Hay says C.J. Wallace, the son of the late rapper Christopher Wallace, a.k.a. the notorious B.I.G., took him to a location where two men put an item over Hay's head before Sean Combs once again enters the picture and allegedly sexually assaulted him orally several times. The report is that Hay provided Largo police with pictures and videos to show he was collaborating with C.J. Wallace on a music project, which he said led to him being introduced to Combs and the incidents occurring. Wallace filed a counterclaim against Hay in Florida last week, denying what he said were wildly false and defamatory allegations, calling them in part a calculated smear campaign intended to damage him. And a lawyer representing Combs said in a statement, he cannot address every meritless allegation in what's become a media circus, but making it absolutely clear, Combs categorically denies as false and defamatory all of these claims and looks forward to vindicating himself in court. That's a lot. How the hell do they get to the bottom of this one, guys?
Well, we discussed this on, a little podcast called MK True Crime the other day.
Yeah.
And one thing that I didn't hear you say that I read in our materials was that the guy, the alleged victim, underwent a rape screening scenario. Now, that doesn't mean he's telling the truth, but I always look for that. Did he really succumb to greater scrutiny to his allegations, or did he run to the nearest billboard and find an attorney for a money grab? This could be that. But I like that he is cooperating with law enforcement. I like that there are other witnesses that are involved that could corroborate his statement. And it also candidly does not seem like an allegation that's inconsistent with what we learned about what his MO is. Anything goes with him.
It is a little inconsistent. It is a little inconsistent.
Because it didn't involve lube? Come on.
It's inconsistent
because it didn't
wasn't
involve
forceful.
like a woman. I mean, I have to say, there were
likes it
rumors that
all.
Sean Combs was gay. We heard rumors like that before the trial. But in all those weeks of testimony, Ashley, we never heard about Sean Combs getting it on with the male escorts.
No.
It was only that he liked to watch the women do it.
Right, completely. And it seems odd. There's no allegation of force. This isn't a kid. When you have a child, the force doesn't need to be shown. But when you have an adult, you have to actually show force for a sex crime. So you've got to show some type of, did you use a weapon? Did you hold him down? Did you lock him up? Something like that. Did he, if you just think about the actual act, where is the force and where, what happened when he was actually trying to get him to do this?
Good
Did
question.
he bite down? Like what, it's kind of gross to think about, but think about it. And there's ways that you could defend yourself in this type of case. Just doesn't make sense to me.
As a grown man. Go ahead, Phil.
On its face, you could say, all right, well, this is Diddy. Everybody knows how Diddy is. They could see this happening. But setting that aside, look, this is 6 years later. And we always have to ask the question, what is the reason for bringing this now? Okay, are you bringing it now because somehow you now have more evidence than you had back in 2020? I think the answer to that is absolutely no, because as time goes by, you tend to have less evidence to support your claims. The only thing he's got going for him now that might support his claims is that Diddy is now a known sex offender, right? And a known criminal. He's been convicted. He's in prison for it. And so everybody knows what Diddy really is, okay? And so he's playing, in my opinion, into that public sentiment, trying to capitalize on it. Maybe it's true, I don't know, but I think that his ability to prove that it's true, which is what you have to have in a court of law, is proof. And certainly if they're talking about a criminal case, proof beyond a reasonable doubt, they're going to have something. They're going to have videos, photographs, actual DNA evidence, witnesses, something other than just this bare bones claim.
What about Phil Holloway, the fact that now he's a convicted sex offender? I mean, all that's going to come in, right? That can come in, and the jury could hear about the prior conviction.
So look, let's just hypothetically say that he gets indicted and charged with this sexual assault from back in 2020. In order to bring someone's character in, there's lots of safeguards that are intended to cause criminal charges to stand on their own. We can't essentially convict people because of their general bad character.
But we've done it before.
But here's the thing,
We love to do it.
regardless of whether or not this evidence actually comes in, whoever's on this hypothetical jury in this hypothetical criminal case already knows what kind of person Diddy is. So, you could, I guess, theoretically say a jury could find him guilty just because they know independently of any evidence that comes into a courtroom what kind of person Diddy is.
Why are you shaking your head no, Mark?
The judge would tell him, no, you can't do that.
Because I'm surprised that everybody is conceding, especially two sharp defense lawyers here, that testimony would come out in this case.
I didn't concede that. I said the jury already knows it.
I got it.
Well, I'm asking whether it would come in.
I don't, not in a million, not without me yelling at the judge. You can't plausibly analogize the fact that the man was convicted solely, this is all he was convicted of, transporting sex workers across state lines. That's what he was accused of. Mm-hmm. Now you have a case where he's accused of forcing his most private item into this guy's mouth, and I don't see how you plausibly analogize those cases. I didn't know what to say.
Well, and if the conviction for prostitution comes in, maybe that's what this was. You could always defend it that way. You never know.
Do you think it's interesting to me, you guys, that they're apparently going to the cops?
Right.
Because Mark, you are the king of seeing the money grab in these cases. I mean, we've had countless segments where you actually hold out a little $20 bill and grab at it. Mm-hmm. But he didn't do that. He went to the cops first, which I don't know, I think that could help him. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, it definitely will help. And Phil makes a great point, the delayed reporting that never helps. But a lot of people who've gone through tremendous trauma, it takes time for them to go through it. They know they're going up the all great, powerful, Diddy. It's going to be hard to win. It's going to be hard to prevail. And so, maybe he waited for the right moment, the right climate. It doesn't mean that his allegations aren't any less true.
And he's within the statute of limitations. So, all right, quickly before we leave the subject of Diddy, report from the New York Post that his prison release date has been pushed back by 1 month, that he's been given an extra month of punishment. They report, allegedly, that the reason, again, it remains unclear, but they're citing TMZ for the proposition that he was in trouble with prison officials earlier this month for consuming homemade alcohol made of, everyone wants to know what it was made of, fermented sugar, Fanta, soda, and apples.
Oh, yeah.
Frankly, I just kind of want to see
toilet wine.
How do you turn
they make it in a
alcohol?
toilet?
You do? Ew.
It's so gross.
Ew. There's only one toilet. It has to be used for the other things too.
So
you got to really want your alcohol.
Jailers can't be choosers,
Megyn, I remember there was testimony at the sentencing hearing that he'd overcome his substance abuse issues and all, but now we hear that
wasn't authentic.
He's desperate enough that he's going to drink hooch out of the toilet. What's going on?
At a time, by the way, that he's earning probably a year off of his sentence by attending the federal RDAP program, where he's supposed to rid himself of drugs and alcohol. So there's the irony. Assuming it to be true, his people say it's not. So
he's like, Your Honor, I thought that was Fanta. I thought it was Fanta and apples. That's all I thought I was drinking.
Right.
I was thirsty.
Well, it doesn't seem like it's going so well for him there. All right, let's keep going. There's more yet to do. There is a bizarre case, we've covered it before, by this guy. He's a singer. He goes by David, but he spells his name D4VD. And what happened with David was he was apparently seeing a much younger girl who was a teenager, and his car was towed. It was put in an impound lot, and lo and behold, her severed remains were found in his car. And we've been waiting now for weeks to see whether he would be arrested, because it's his car, it's his girlfriend, and she was decomposing in his vehicle. Now, the latest via ABC News is that he is now officially considered, quote, a suspect, which is sort of an interesting thing to release. What do you mean he's officially? Like, the cops must want this out there. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner still not determined a cause and manner of death for the teen, identified as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. But investigators say they believe that the medical examiner will determine the cause of death soon, and they apparently want this out there, that they now consider him a suspect. They allege he's not cooperating with the investigation. They searched the home where David has been living shortly after they found and identified her body. So What do we make of the fact that the headline now is not he's under arrest, not he's brought in for questioning, but he is officially considered a suspect?
I think they're putting the screws to the other people. Yeah. They think someone else is involved, and I think they're listing him as a suspect so they can start to rattle the cages of witnesses. Hopefully those folks will come forward because the first person to come forward tends to get the deal. So I think they're trying to get snitches to come out from the woodworks.
Yeah, Ashley's right. Here's the thing. We learned with Casey Anthony, and when you've got decomposing bodies and you don't have a busload of nuns to say how it got there, what do you charge him with? Yeah. Is it first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter? Even if you think he's involved, how do you know? So they look like they're desperate. They need witnesses.
I don't believe the statement that they made, the claim that they don't know the cause and manner of death. I find that very, very difficult to believe at this point, because even when you have bodies that are mutilated like this, good forensic medical examiners can get to the cause and manner of death usually pretty quickly. Sometimes it may take a little longer if the body's in really bad shape, but by this point, I think they pretty well know what the cause and manner of death was. We reported on MK True Crime just within the last week or two that the Los Angeles law enforcement authorities were essentially at a standstill with this. And they were saying, look, we've got no evidence of any additional crime. But then there was this public freakout. The public put a lot of pressure on law enforcement in LA. And now we've got them saying, okay, there's a suspect. A suspect in what? Is he a suspect in concealing the death, or is he possibly a suspect, probably, hopefully, in connection with her death? But there's another piece of this that could be, and I think should be, and hopefully has been and is being investigated. It's the nature of his relationship with this child. And so that ought to be something that through forensics and through the digital fingerprint that everybody leaves behind, they ought to be able to go back and piece together a timeline that documents this relationship and documents the nature of it. And it wouldn't surprise me if we don't wind up seeing charges in connection with that piece of this as well.
I just wonder what they have, because I feel like if they had done a luminol search for blood evidence in his house, we might know. There probably would be an arrest by now. It's been months and there's no arrest. I'm starting to wonder whether they have it. All right, we've got to finish with Kim Kardashian, who is dying to do what you three do, what I once did for nearly 10 years.
And that pickleball?
is to be a practicing attorney.
Oh.
She can't do it so far. She didn't go to law school. She's doing like an apprentice program, which you can do in some states, including California, where she lives, where you work under the apprenticeship of an existing lawyer. Then you have to take the baby bar after year one, which she did. She failed it several times and then eventually, I guess, passed. And now she's trying to take the real bar in California, and she failed miserably. Here she is. In a video she posted of herself crying while preparing for it. It didn't go well. SOT 38.
No, I don't have this. I got this. Shit. I really want it. I really, really want it.
Fuck, I'm gonna film this because, oh my God, I'm just so tired. But it's like every time I feel like I'm a step ahead, something happens to try to stop me from doing this.
You didn't go to law school. That's what it is.
That's the problem.
But I just want to a part of me just wants to stop. I just feel like my brain's going to explode. And I still have so much more to go.
Okay.
I want to be sympathetic. I really do.
I know.
Not everyone was meant to be a lawyer, guys.
No. And we don't need more lawyers. We need better lawyers.
Yes.
We do. Like, I'm in court every day. We need better lawyers. We need a higher standard, a higher
You don't see
bar.
her as the answer to this problem, Ashley?
No, I do not see her as the answer. And I definitely don't think someone who just keeps trying to pass the bar, hoping that one time it'll stick, is the answer. We don't need these people in court. Like, it's insane to me.
Well, she should have gone to law school, okay, because, look, I give everybody credit for trying and pursuing their dream and so on and so forth, but it seems to me that maybe she's just in this for social media clicks, right, and to become even a bigger influencer on social media, because that seems to be what's really going on. Look, you need to go to law school, because the bar exams, I got news for you guys. It's based on the stuff that is taught in law school. And doing an apprenticeship, you just don't know whether or not somebody's getting the education that's necessary
Apparently
to
she
pass
wasn't.
the bar.
I suppose you could do it if you apprenticed under a really talented lawyer or teacher, but she apparently hasn't. And let's face it, she's not going to Mensa meetings on her days off. She's complaining in the video, Mark, that she's been studying for 4 months straight. Hello, we all did that. It's called preparing for the bar.
Okay. All right. So 3 things. One, didn't know you can become a lawyer without going to law school. I would have done that. Secondly, that was me. I cried many times like that before selfies, so no one ever saw it. And third, I'm going to throw this out there, controversial. Her heart might be in the right place. There might be some defendants who get attention if she's a lawyer that wouldn't ordinarily do that. And if some of them are innocent, that might be a good thing.
She's already doing it. She's already calling attention to cases with her fame.
But as
That's
a
good enough.
lawyer-
We do not need another knuckle-headed lawyer.
No.
This is a vanity project for her because she wants to be taken seriously in the intellectual department. She should just be happy with what she has, which is enormous fame and an enormous ass. Love you all. See you the next time.
Good to
Farewell.
see you.
Thanks, Megyn. Take care.
Thank you.
More people today are looking beyond the standard approach when it comes to their health, especially in the fight against cancer. 2 medications you've probably heard about, ivermectin and mebendazole, are being researched for their off-label potential to support cancer treatment. Studies suggest they may help inhibit cancer cell growth and make certain therapies more effective. All Family Pharmacy makes access to these trusted meds simple. Every order is reviewed by a licensed doctor for safety, and prescriptions are provided when appropriate. It's a pharmacy that believes you should have the right to choose what's best for your health and not be limited by politics or big corporations. All Family Pharmacy offers ivermectin, mebendazole, and over 200 other essential medications, all shipped straight to your door. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/Megyn. Use the code Megyn10 to save 10% on your order. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/Megyn to learn more. Let's go. Isn't it great to be together? It's so great to see you. You're not alone. It's only the liberal media and the haters who want you to think that. We're in the majority right now.
We're from Chicago. We flew in just for this. I was like, we have to go. And then after what happened to Charlie, I'm like, we definitely have to go.
Don't miss your last chance to be part of the Megyn Kelly Live Tour.
It's a very important time in our country, Megyn.
Stand firmly. Do not waver on the truth.
Next stops, Bakersfield, Anaheim, and the grand finale in Glendale, Arizona, featuring special guest Erica Kirk. I really genuinely feel like it's more important right now than ever, for all the reasons. And it took courage for all of you to come.
The biggest thing we can do is be unafraid.
So go get your tickets right now before they sell out. MegynKelly.com. Presented by Y-Refi and SiriusXM. Link Lauren is my guest today, MK Media star and host of Spot On with Link Lauren. Link, great to have you. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
You've had a busy couple of days. Have you been following President Trump and the First Lady around?
So it has been a really crazy last few days. I'm so grateful. I'll give you the cliff notes, and then we're going to do a full breakdown on Spot On. So I won't bore everyone with it right now. But the First Lady took a trip to North Carolina with the Second Lady, Usha Vance, and they were going for Thanksgiving to meet with military families and kids and troops and Marines. And they hit me up a few days before and they said, "You wouldn't want to come, would you?" And I said, "No, I'm only the biggest fan of the First Lady. Yes, I would like to come on the plane with the First Lady." And so I immediately came to DC. We met at the White House. We took a motorcade to the plane. The First Lady looked beautiful. The Second Lady looked beautiful. And then we landed in North Carolina and they went to Lejeune High School and they met with all of these students and they did a seminar on AI and how they're incorporating AI into their classrooms. Then they met with these young kids at the elementary school. And you know me, Megyn, I'm very judgmental, right? I'm very judgmental. I might love someone.
In a good way.
In a good way, yeah. I might love someone, but I'm also judgmental and sort of looking at them going, okay, what's going on? What are they really like? And I thought this would be an opportunity to see the First Lady up close, because something I talk about a lot is sort of how Michelle Obama and liberal First Ladies get a pass on everything, right? They can do a tour talking about their hair and makeup and nobody says anything, right? They're praised.
And how racist they are.
Yeah, and how racist they are. And they're praised and beloved. But when First Lady Melania Trump does anything, she's pretty maligned by the mainstream media for doing, nothing or even doing the same things. And so I thought, okay, I want to go see her in person. They gave us unfettered access. We're like hanging out in this classroom with her and all of these kids. The kids, what was really emotional, a lot of the kids, their parents were deployed. They might not be home for the holidays. They were so excited to see the First Lady. They're like, oh my God, your husband's the president. And like some of the kids were old enough to understand. But what I really liked, and like I said, I'm judgmental, there was no moment where I felt like she was rushing through for a photo op. There was no moment where I felt like, okay, we're going to go see this kid and then we're going to do this, we're going to do this. She gave every kid ample time. She didn't care. You can hold the motorcade, you can hold the plane. I'm going to hang out with these kids. We're going to do this. They're throwing stuff at her, throwing things on her head. They're cutting stuff up. I mean, they're being rambunctious kids. And that's when I thought, okay, this is a real badass woman right here, the First Lady.
She's the epitome of class, and it doesn't matter how much they throw at her, and the mainstream media loathes her for no other reason than she's stuck by Donald Trump. She's married to him. She always maintains her dignity. I want to show the audience just a little bit of her interaction. This is with a little girl at the Delatio Elementary School. Okay, the Delalio, sorry, yeah, okay. Elementary school in North Carolina. Here it is, short shot, number one. Touching the little girl's head. Aww, oh my gosh, that's so adorable. She's sitting next to a little girl, telling the little girl she's so beautiful. And Melania's smile, of course, is 1,000 watt. And the little girl's looking up at her and kind of feeling self-conscious. It's a beautiful moment, one you will never see on the vast majority of the MSM, because it has the unfortunate side effect of making Melania look human and kind.
Well, that's why I'm so grateful they invited me, because I don't have an editor I report to, right? So all the other reporters in the pool, they have to file and get it through this and that and a whole rigmarole. I just took that video on my phone. I mean, we're a few feet from the First Lady. I'm just taking videos on my phone and posting them up, and they're getting tons and tons of views while we're there on the ground. And people are like, oh, we've never seen this side to her, or we bought into the narrative that was in the mainstream media. But I'm here to tell you, like, I can spot a fake and a phony. I can spot a fake Birkin. I can spot a fake person. There was nothing fake about her. I was like, okay, she's not rushing. She's not breezing through. Every kid is getting time. She was not fazed at all. The kids were jumping and throwing things. So no, I absolutely have the utmost respect for her. I also thought the second lady, Usha Vance, was really cool too.
Yes,
I hadn't ever seen her.
By the way, Link, can I just say, if Second Lady Usha Vance were Second Lady in a Democrat administration, she already would have been on the cover of several magazines. She's stunning. She too is the epitome of class. She's got amazing style, and she happens to be a minority, which normally the left loves. They love to celebrate it. She gets a hero's welcome when she walks in during this Thanksgiving visit with North Carolina military families at Camp Lejeune. I'm going to show a little bit of it here at SOT 2. It's her and Melania. Aw. Okay. Do you remember it wasn't so long ago that they tried to sell us on Michelle Obama and Second Lady, then Jill Biden being the iconoclasts of style that we were supposed to look up to for every, boot they donned on their feet? And it was a lie. I mean, everyone saw that it was a lie. Meanwhile, you've got these two knockouts walking in there. Right. No one's going to profile them. They're not going to be on the cover of magazines. They're only going to be covered in dripping vitriol from virtually every publication that writes about them because of who they're married to and the fact that they're Republicans.
No, absolutely. I probably do a video or a segment on the podcast every single week about this. That's why I was so excited when they called and said, do you want to come? Because something I've covered a lot, and I cover a lot, are the double standards in politics, right? I did this with the tariffs, right? Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, there were 1,000 clips of them fighting for years. They wanted tariffs for decades. We want tariffs. We want tariffs. The second President Trump said he wanted tariffs, all hell broke loose, and they were fighting him tooth and nail, right? First Lady Melania Trump, she's self-made. She's an immigrant. She speaks 5 languages. Usha Vance, her family immigrated to this country the right way. If they had a D next to their names, of course they would be on the cover of Vogue by now 15,000 times. But what do? They put Jill Biden, Michelle Obama on the cover of Vogue. And this is how liberal women treat conservative women, right? I just did a whole thing on this. Liberal women will absolutely attack conservative conservative women, which shows that all of the female empowerment, feminism, dress for success stuff that they talk about is a bunch of BS if you don't extend it to women who happen to vote a little bit differently than you do or happen to be married to a Republican, right? So that's why I just don't buy into all of the liberal feminism.
Well,
and I was
also,
excited to see them.
Just to jump in on it, also Usha Vance, not in addition to being stunning and a mother and
An
a
attorney,
wife,
I think.
it is a very successful attorney. She was at the top of her Yale Law School class. That's why she wound up clerking for Supreme Court for United States Chief Justice John Roberts. You don't just give that job to anybody while pregnant. I mean, like normally the left will be celebrating her universally. And by the way, I don't even know what her politics are. You know, like she doesn't talk about her politics a lot. I think she might be an independent and not really even necessarily a Republican, but who cares?
Right.
She won't get any accolades because she's married to JD. So whatever, we're used to it, but it's always worth pointing out because those two women are worthy of celebration and no one else is gonna do it. Okay. Speaking of Democrats on the left who will never praise people over on the right, Jasmine Crockett. She's run out of actual villains over on the right, so she's starting to make them up, trying to say somebody like a Lee Zeldin, who almost became governor of New York 4 years ago, a Republican, now he's Trump's EPA administrator, took donations from Jeffrey Epstein. Now, we ran this soundbite yesterday. The problem for Jasmine Crockett is not the Jeffrey Epstein, from a guy named Dr. Jeffrey Epstein.
I think I've been to a Dr. Jeffrey Epstein before in New York. I mean, who hasn't?
Yeah. So she got caught. I mean, she's an idiot. She doesn't do her homework. She's careless. And she got caught. And I said yesterday, she's lucky she said that on the House floor, accusing Lee Zeldin of taking donations from the Jeffrey Epstein, because he could sue her. It's not true, and it is defamatory. And you can't sue her, though, because she was on the House floor when she said it. And now here she is out there trying to cover it up, trying to pretend she didn't make the error, that like it was intentional and she knew what she was saying might be wrong. In an interview she gave Wednesday to CNN, it's SOT3.
Do you want to correct the record on the people that?
Listen, I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein, just so that people understand when you make a donation, your picture is not there. And because they decided to spring this on us in real time, I wanted the Republicans to think about what could potentially happen, because I knew that they didn't even try to go through the FEC. So my team, what they did is they Googled, and that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. He admitted that he did receive donations from a Jeffrey Epstein, so at least I wasn't trying to mislead people. I literally had maybe 20 minutes before I had to do that debate.
Yeah, but people might see that and say, well, you're trying to make it sound like he took money from
I did not know.
A registered sex offender.
No, but I literally did not know. When you search FEC files, and that's what I had my team to do, I texted them and I said, listen, we're going up. They are saying that she took donations.
Right, but someone might say, well, your team should have done the homework to make sure it wasn't the convicted sex trafficker.
Within 20 minutes, you could not find that out.
Oh my God, you're an idiot. Let me tell you something, Link. There is the standard in law, which is you can defame a public figure like Lee Zeldin if you can prove that you made a false statement about him and it was made either with malicious intent, that it was made with malicious intent, meaning disregard of the truth, reckless disregard of the truth. That will do it. You knew it was true or untrue, or you were recklessly careless about whether it was true or not. That's what she just did. The only thing protecting her from a massive lawsuit is the fact that she did it on the House floor. The nerve. I only had 20 minutes. We didn't know. That's why you don't say something like that publicly, you absolute cretin.
Yeah, absolutely. I will go back to Jasmine Crockett claims she went to law school. She claims she passed the bar exam, but sometimes when she talks, it sounds like she got her GED in prison. Okay, and no offense to the inmates out there, we love you. But Jasmine Crockett, I'm like, you are one of the dumbest, most uncouth women. And then when you look at your team, the fact that no one on the team stepped in, that's the job of your aides and your advisors to say, yo, let's not go out there and say this, or this information isn't correct. And you know, when you've lost Caitlyn and you've lost CNN, you might be on the wrong side of history. You know, when you've lost
just for the audience who didn't see the original soundbite, here it is from yesterday. It's SOT4.
Folks who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio. I just want to be clear. If this is the standard that we're going to make, just know we're going to expose it all.
Okay, and the reason she was doing that is because she was trying to run cover for this Democrat representative, Stacey Plaskett of the U.S. Virgin Islands, who was very tight with Jeffrey Epstein, or so it would appear, as she was texting him live during a congressional hearing, cross-examining Michael Cohen, Trump's fixer attorney, and she was asking Epstein for dirt on Trump that she could raise with Michael Cohen. So that's Jasmine Crockett saying, oh, these are all the people that he gave to in an effort to diminish the relationship between her fellow representative, to this woman who got in trouble yesterday, Plaskett, but didn't actually get censored, and Jeffrey Epstein. So she'll run cover for her by condemning all those names you just heard, Mitt Romney, Lee Zeldin, completely carelessly, just because she's got to save her fellow, female, Black Democrat from the Virgin Islands.
Well, absolutely. And I think it's interesting. The Democrats don't actually care about the facts, right? She's not going to get heat from her own party for this. She's not going to get called in by Mike Johnson or anybody over this. They just like that she's out there and she's loud and she's taking Republicans to task. So they don't care about the truth. Jasmine Crockett, this isn't the first lie that she spewed. She's gone out there and spread vitriol. We find out from her team that she's a diva. She wants them to carry her purse around and get her a pillow to prop up her back. That's who Jasmine Crockett is. And so none of this is shocking to me. I don't think she's in elected office because she's brilliant or because she's in Mensa. I think she's there because she's loud, and they look at her as maybe some resistance type figure, like a Gavin Newsom, part of the resistance, but they might be resistance, but there's no substance, Megyn, with her.
I mean, you don't want to sacrifice smart for street. Right. Ideally, you get both if that's your goal, but if you have to choose between one and the other, I'd recommend going for smart.
I will say, though, the more time you spend in D.C., you're shocked at how unintelligent some elected officials are. You're like, I could do this. You know, even in Congress, you walk around, you're like, these are just some random blokes from a county somewhere who ended up in D.C. I think I could do this, you know? So I understand 100%. How people end up in D.C. sometimes. They're not intelligent people, everyone.
We don't deserve you. You should stay in D.C. just in the capacity that you're in right now. Do not cross over to the other side. We don't deserve you. Trump has been taking a beating from some lately because, like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying he's been spending too much time overseas, he needs to focus on domestic policy. And there are some polls that suggest that's true, that even MAGA feels like enough with the overseas trips. Trump's very defensive of that, saying, you know what, like I had to strike a deal with China or you'd be paying more and everything. I had to create some peace in the Middle East or we'd have more people dying. And now Harry Enton over at CNN takes a look at what Trump's approval ratings on foreign policy look like compared to his first term. Take a look at this link, SOT7.
This is one of the areas in which Donald Trump is performing significantly better than he was in term one. One of his best issues relative to term one. What are we talking about? Approval of Trump on foreign policy at this point in term one. Look, Donald Trump was just at a 35% approval rating. Up like a rocket. We're talking about 43% now. That's an 8-point rise. On the net approval rating, we're talking about a double-digit rise. The American people like much more of what they're seeing from Donald Trump in foreign policy in term two than they did in term number one. All right, 21st century foreign policy approval rating at this point in term two. George W. Bush was down at 36%. Barack Obama was at 37%. Look at this. Donald Trump actually leads the pack at 43%. Donald Trump has a higher foreign policy approval rating at this point in a second term than any other president who served their entire second term in the 21st century. This is something I think Donald Trump really likes to look at, because the bottom line is this: presidents like to build their legacies off of foreign policy, and at this particular point, the American people like much more of what Donald Trump's doing on foreign policy than either of the two other 21st century presidents who served served two terms.
So, Link, is he getting enough credit? You know, do you think that he's getting a little too much jazz from critics on being overseas fairly frequently, as opposed to recognizing he's actually accomplished some amazing things there, and he has been focused on domestic policy? I mean, he can chew gum and walk at the same time.
Absolutely. I think people forget how bad it was under Joe Biden. I think they forget, okay, sky-high inflation. The border was literally a disaster. We had millions of people pouring into the border. I went down there and saw it for myself in Arizona and Texas. You had needles and kids being trafficked. So now the border is completely secure. We're less than a year into this administration. He's trying to bring world peace, but I understand also there there's this despondency of young men online. This is a growing epidemic, actually. And something I talk about a lot is I think 1 in 5 young men are what we call NEET, which means not in education, employment, or training. So they're at home, they're on social media, they're consuming influencers and podcasters, and they feel like the American system isn't working for them. They feel like, I'm not going to own a home like my parents. I'm not going to get a wife or the American dream. So I can understand why some of these young men are upset, saying, man, cost of living is still tough. Affordability. Now we've got AI coming in and our robots going to take our jobs. These young men, they are stressed and they were talked into going to college. Now they've got debt and maybe they can't even get the jobs with those degrees. So I understand young men are frustrated, right? But we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And it is America first to have good relations and good trade with other countries, right? It's America first to not get ripped off by every other country on the globe. And did you not remember when President Trump wrote Art of the Deal? His whole deal is coming in and making deals. He'll negotiate on anything. He'll negotiate on a piece of art. He'll negotiate on a country and tariffs. And so I'm not shocked at all. And I'm happy that we're doing these deals now with these countries. I think we just secured $1 trillion with the Crown Prince coming for the dinner the other night. So that's good. You know, this is great. And we'll see how it plays out. It's first
How
year.
about the makeup between the two top bros, Elon and Trump? Elon was there. They're back. We knew it would happen eventually, but I don't know. I feel better that they made up.
Well, I feel like I was a little bit a part of that. So they hit me up and they're like, hey, do you want to cover the dinner tonight? I said, that huge ass dinner with the Crown Prince and all these important people? Yes, but I don't have a tuxedo. They're like, oh, well, you can't come if you don't have a tuxedo. And I said, well, there's a Men's Warehouse next to my hotel. Let me see what I can do. So I walk into Men's Warehouse over here in DC with my credit card and I'm like, I need to be out of here in 10 minutes with a tuxedo. And they said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the White House, okay, with the press to cover this event. So I go and we get ushered into this room and there's candlelight. And you've got Elon there and Brett Baer and Bill Ackman and Cristiano Ronaldo. And I tweeted a picture. This is my picture. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Steve. I tweeted this picture standing there at the dinner. I said, Elon Musk is at this dinner at the White House. And it started going crazy. And people said, you're not really there. You're lying. You're not in the room. I said, I am in the room. Elon is here. So a makeup is imminent or a makeup is happening. Okay. And I'm glad to see the boys back together. And I don't know how I find myself in these situations. Okay. I'm like, is that Elon Musk? Hold on now. But
it's because you say yes to everything, which is good. I remember
say yes, and I will say too, okay, because there are some folks online, they're like, oh, link just popped up out of nowhere and this and that. I work hard, number one, but these people don't remember when I was doing videos on TikTok, I would go to Iowa and I was like traveling around Iowa on a bus. I couldn't even get into GOP primary events. I won't call these people out, but some of them are pretty puny primary candidates. And their team was like, you don't have credentials. You can't come into, the pizza restaurant where we're talking to, seniors. And so now that I get to cover things, it's like, no, I have actually been doing this for a few years now. I didn't just pop up,
And honestly, when it comes to political
coverage,
it's people should know it's not that hard. That's how you start. Like it's not atypical to start in Iowa begging to get into some primary campaign coverage and within 2 years to be covering the White House. You can do it. All it takes is hard work, ingenuity, and ideally some honesty, which you have. Most don't, and they managed to overcome that too.
Also
but your story reminded me of something when
yes,
I was a very young reporter. I had not yet joined Fox News. I was working for WJLA in Washington, D.C. And they invited me to the radio and television correspondence dinner, which I was so excited to go to because I knew it from broadcast news. I was so excited to be one of the people there. I had on this strapless hot pink dress, which I absolutely loved. And I drove from Baltimore, where I was living. It took like an hour and a half. I had these like very long spangly earrings on, dazzling sort of fake diamonds. And I went to the dinner and then I didn't eat anything, because those dinners, you're like glad handing and you're moving about the tables. But I was starving. So on the way home, I went through the McDonald's drive-thru in my outfit, right? With my hair and the dangly earrings. And the guy in the drive-thru window goes, where were you tonight? And I was like, I was having dinner with the president because the president was there at the time. And he goes, you had dinner with the president and now you're here?
That was me. I went by like CVS to get some Chobani yogurt and stuff afterward. But I don't know how I find myself in these situations. I sometimes feel, and I felt this way with the wickless candle. Okay, not to get too like woo-woo California. This is so not me. But my grandfather, his name was Showboat, okay? He was over the top. His nickname was Showboat. I am the spitting image of my grandfather. Everyone in my family is like, oh, you look like Uncle Boat. I feel like my grandfather is up there pulling strings or something, because he was always hyping me up, was always supportive of me. So when I have these opportunities, and my mom texted me last night, she was like, I just prayed to God. I'm so grateful for you. I feel like all the bad things you went through in school and growing up, God knows you're ready to receive these blessings with humility. And I do feel that way. Like, I have so much gratitude, and I'm sure it comes across annoying to the other people in the press pool. I'm like, oh my God, we're here in the room with the president. But it's like, I'm grateful to be there. Sue me for being excited to be there. Okay.
Listen, they wear their hatred for Trump openly on their sleeve. So why can't you be the opposite? And that's
Megyn,
the way we cover politics.
Yesterday, the reporters were so making fun of me in the pool. We go to that big gymnasium where you had the parents and the kids in the stands, like we showed earlier. And we're standing or waiting for the first and second lady to come in. And I hear this yelling and the screaming, and I'm like, what is that? What is that? And some of the other reporters who are like serious DC, journalists, one's from ABC, one's from here, they're like, Link, those ladies are yelling at you. And I look in the stands, and then these kind of middle-aged conservative looking women, and they're going, Link, come here, Link. And I'm like, y'all know me? And they're like, yes, come here. And I said, I love you, but I can't come over there because of Secret Service. This isn't my event, okay? Right. And so then when we were leaving the school, there were these older girls that were like, hey, can we take a picture with you? I'm like, I can't. We got to get in the motorcade, but stay in school. And then the whole rest of the day, these reporters are making fun of me, which I didn't mind. They were ribbing me. Like, we'd go to the next event, they're like, hey, Link, you might have some fans at this event. You might have some fans. I'm like, I didn't know these women would know me, but we're in a red state, and you got a lot of middle-aged conservative women in North Carolina. But the whole day, they were just teasing me like, hey, get ready for your fans. They might be here. But we all get along.
That's awesome. They must be listeners to Spot On, part of the MK Media Network.
I blame you, Megyn. They looked like Megyn Kelly ladies. They looked like Megyn Kelly people.
My ladies.
So they look like your ladies.
Well, good. They have good taste in young, aspiring male reporters. That's clear. All right. You mentioned Meghan Markle, and we've got to spend some time on her. We didn't mention her by name, but you mentioned your wickless candle that you ordered from As Ever, her amazing product line, of which she is a founder.
Yes, a female founder.
My friend just lost her ring. She went to replace it. She realized it was a gold ring. The price of it has gone up like 25% since she bought the ring a year ago. That's because gold is on the march upward. And it is the one time of year that Birch Gold Group gives away free gold with every qualifying purchase. That's right, for Black Friday, when you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, Birch Gold will send free gold to your home for every $20,000 purchased. Gold started this year around $2,600 an ounce. By October, it was over $4,000 an ounce. Why? Global uncertainty. 2025 has been defined by trade wars, central banks are pulling from the US dollar as the global reserve currency, and military tension continues to build. Gold thrives in times of uncertainty, and if you are looking to diversify your savings, Birch Gold can help you. Plus, now through November 30th, get free gold, I say, with a qualifying purchase. Just text MK to the number 989898 to claim your eligibility and for a free info kit on gold. But your opportunity for free gold with purchase will end on November 30th, so don't wait. Text MK to the number 989898 for full details. Message and data rates may apply. You know what's right around the corner? That time of year to start thinking about gifts. Want to give something everyone will love? How about firecracker.farm? It's Firecracker Farm hot salt. And I met the owner on the tour. He was amazing. He's so fun. Just like you think about Firecracker Farm hot salt, this is the perfect guy. It's hot salt. You've heard the buzz because this incredible small batch product is genuinely special. It has the perfect amount of heat and flavor and elevates everything you put it on. Eggs, steak, chicken, pasta. Plus, it comes in these sleek little stainless steel push grinders. The presentation alone tells you someone cares about what they're doing here. Listen, Alex and his family make this in small batches, so when it's gone, and it goes quickly every Christmas season. With Christmas right around the corner, they're going to sell out. This is not some generic last-minute gift you can pick up on Amazon. It's thoughtful, it's high quality, it's genuinely special, and whoever you give it to will be truly grateful. Like I said, it's small batch. They have limited quantities. Make your move now. Do yourself a favor. Get your gift shopping today. Get it done today. Head on over to firecracker.farm. Use code MK at checkout for 10% off your order. That's firecracker.farm. We're going to dig into this one today because she is out there. She's cover girl now for Harper's Bazaar. Do we have the video of her and her stomach turning. Yeah, we have the behind the scenes video. Photo shoot for Harper's. Here, watch a little bit of this if you can. Slot 11. For the listening audience, it's her trying to look glamorous and dewy, with the big eyes, the hand on her chin, the slow head turn. Oh, on the couch, on the settee, with the silk dress, staring into the camera like an ingenue, like an innocent. The hands back, things she's seen a million times before. She's not a model. She's just playing one here on TV. About 25,000 outfit changes. Trying to look like Giselle, which she's not. Oh, all right, I've had enough. Clapping for herself. That last part was on brand. And
She's the
she
only one
sat for an interview for all of this with somebody named Caitlin Greenidge, who, as far as I can tell, is an absolute idiot. She was so dumb, it was so bad that I had to ask my team, who is this person? Now I find out, okay, for listening audience, she's a Black woman. She's features director at Harper's Bazaar. She was formerly the Hodder Fellow at Princeton University Center for the Arts, contributing writer at the New York Times. She had recent articles like November 2025, the vibe shift that wasn't reports of the death of woke are greatly exaggerated. June 2025, the institutions fighting to save Black history under Trump. April 2025, Tina Knowles, Beyonce's mother, wrote the mother of all memoirs, November 2024. This is how you #win with Black women. And then they're talking about the women who organized the 44,000 person fundraising Zoom for Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. There's more about how Black women mobilized on Zoom for Kamala Harris. So this is who Harper's Bazaar thought would be the right person to profile Megyn Markle. Mm-hmm. And the ridiculous exchange between these two. Here's Megyn on the cover of Harper's. I'm just going to say it. She doesn't look good. She looks sad. She's makeupless, which I'm sorry, but it's not good. She needs some eyeliner. The eyes are too close together, and she looks forlorn. I didn't actually ever realize how much work that eyeliner is doing on her. And here's just a little bit from the cover piece. A golf cart pulls up at some natural history museum thing she's going to, and the writer's there. A golf cart pulls up, the gravel crunching beneath its tires. The Duchess of Sussex, someone in the scrum announces. Megyn descends. Megyn is attuned to the girls. She asks one about her nails, another about what she's studying. When a girl mentions her love of languages, Megyn lights up. I'm learning French on Duolingo, she says proudly, adding that she just hit a 90-day streak. I don't know how any woman could see a young girl and not see herself in her, especially at that age, Megyn tells me later. Once again, Megyn Markle makes everything about herself, and then this writer gets into some of her absurdities, like the following. How do powerful women flex? Do they lead with deference or dominance? Megyn seems to lead with affability. The warmth with which she greets each of these men in the restaurant where they sat, and with which they reciprocate, is genuine. With me, her interviewer, where the power balance shifts back and forth. Sorry, no, it doesn't. Even Megyn Markle is definitely out of your league, madam. She is warm and open, and she always maintains direct eye contact. It's a skill she's honed since childhood. I was such a little nerd, she says. My entire identity was wrapped up in being the smart one. There used to be this show, I'm dating myself, but do you remember Studs? After school, kids would enact a little makeshift version of Studs to play. They were like, well, Megyn can be the host, she says. I had the personality type of, I can help coordinate, I can help organize, I can facilitate. I think I'm probably the same now. The fear of failure often runs in tandem, writes this reporter, with the millennial desire to achieve. When I broach the topic and ask Megyn what she's learned from her mistakes, she deadpans. You learn not to do it again, which of course is untrue in Megyn Markle's case. Link, as you've been calling her, she's, among other things, a disaster tourist who cannot seem to stop herself from taking advantage of places where people have suffered amazing hardship and injecting her photo op right in the middle of it. That's just one point to kick us off. Where would you like to go next?
Okay. Megyn Markle always says she's known as the smart one and that her whole identity is wrapped up in being smart. we're still waiting to see that. Where's that smart identity? Like, was it smart to leave the royal family to go sell jams, jellies, dog biscuits, and wickless candles? Like, you could be royalty right now. Like, all of these celebrities that you're trying to hang out with, and you're hanging out with the Kardashians, or hanging out with people who have like sex tapes and show their vaginas on camera, you could be British royalty right now. You know what I'm saying? You could be eating crumpets and scones. Like, they just had a massive state dinner and a tiara. Look at that state dinner they had recently where President Trump sat next to Catherine and Camilla and the king and the whole delegation. You could have been there at that massive, beautiful state dinner at Windsor. You're hanging out with the Kardashians at a party, and then you don't like the way you look in the photos because you look bloated, and you allegedly asked for them to be taken down. That's who Megyn Markle is. So she says she's this smart, genius organizer. We're still waiting to see it. You did like one drop of your products. I ordered the candle. The candle came without a wick. This is not even a stunt. I literally opened it on camera. Her candle that was $64 was not lightable, okay? It was a metaphor for her career. Nothing was igniting, nothing was lighting, there was nothing on the inside. So Megyn Markle, it's actually quite pathetic to see someone fall from grace so hard.
Right.
And let this be a cautionary tale to so many of the women out there who maybe even look up to Megyn Markle, though I don't know how you would have stumbled upon this podcast. The grass is not always greener, okay? You might think you're holding all the cards in life. You got to know what cards you have and what cards you don't. Megyn Markle overplayed her hand. She thought, I'm going to leave the royal family. They need us more than we need them. We're getting out of here. And in the Queen's dying days, they kicked up trouble. She tried to accuse them of racism. That didn't land. Even at the height of Black Lives Matter, people were like, I don't know if we're buying this whole racism story, you know, with Oprah. So every hand she tried to play failed miserably. She should have just stuck it out and been a royal, and she would be revered around the world.
In no world could Harper's Bazaar ever get Kate Middleton on its cover or to sit for an interview. Like, that is so beneath actual members of the royal family.
They'd have to license it to put her on the cover.
Okay, so let's keep going because there's more. So she writes about how, of course, she always wants us to believe she's just a mom with kids at home. That's what she does. And they're at an age where they're constantly learning something new. And you can remember as they face things that are insurmountable and say, I know it seems really hard right now, but trust me, that's going to come easily soon. I can give myself the same grace as a founder. She works it into every interview. A founder. It's amazing. Like, I mean, honestly, I'm a founder. I have my own media company.
Right.
You're a founder. You founded Spot On with Link Lauren. Most normal people don't run around referring to themselves like that because they know it makes them sound completely artificial, narcissistic, and insecure. So she says, I was a founder. Then she writes, there's no such thing, she says, that no such thing as perfect. I, too, get to make mistakes. Okay, she goes on and says, this is the writer for Harper's Bazaar. When I ask Megyn what she hopes her kids see when they see her working, she tells me, now most of us would say, hopefully they learn the value of hard work, right? I think that would be the first thing that would come to mind. They learn the value. No, this is her. I hope they see the value of being brave. It was like so self-aggrandizing. And then adds, they saw it when the jam was just a pot on the stove bubbling. Link, this woman is beyond. I hope they see my courage and how brave I am.
No, you know what's going to happen with these royal kids, okay? They're going to grow up. I'm sure they have like privacy controls and adult filters on the kids, you know, phones and computers. Someday, these kids, Archie and Lilibet, if they exist, they're going to go to a friend's house and they're going to Google their parents and they're going to realize, we could have been royalty this whole time. We could have been living in a palace and we're stuck in this kind of compound in Montecito with this crazy woman and her scrawny legs and her jams on the stove. I would be so pissed. Okay, if I turned 18, this is like Princess Diaries. If I turned 18 and I found out I could have been royalty the whole time and I was stuck in California with the Kardashians, I would be so upset. And I actually hear that there are some titles available if they would like to adopt me. The Duke of York title seems like it's available.
Yes.
I'm ready to be royal. Megyn, I love you and I'm so grateful for you. But if the royal family welcomes me in, y'all will never hear from me again. I will be over there having high tea and crumpets and scones and riding in
First, you'll give us the
carriages.
exclusive. then you can dump us in the dirt.
Yes, I'll do the exclusive. But no,
All right.
Megyn Markle, fall from grace. We've never seen someone thud so hard. It's crazy.
No, I saved the best part for last. I haven't even gotten to the most absurd part, and it's amazing. It's amazing. This is the only area in which I will give this absurd writer
when they go to the
Caitlin
brownstone.
Greenidge, credit.
Okay.
It's awesome that she included this detail. Okay, so now she goes to see Megyn in New York City. We're in a grand brownstone on the Upper East Side that belongs to one of Megyn's friends. So, of course, Megyn, when she comes to New York, she can't just get a room at the Plaza or the Ritz.
Like the Hyatt.
She's got to stay in a friend's brownstone because you see, Link, she's too famous. She's too famous to walk through a lobby. Unlike every other actual celebrity in the world who stay in hotels just fine, including Taylor Swift, with no problem in very many cities, much less a place like New York, which is very used to A-listers, which she is not. Okay, the writer writes as follows, quote, when I enter this brownstone, the house manager announces, Megyn, Duchess of Sussex, even though we appear to be the only other two people in the house. And then and that harkens back to what we read on page 1, where she said they were outside the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles to receive a local group of girls. And as the golf cart pulled up, they yelled out, the Duchess of Sussex. And she appears to have people yell this about her wherever she goes, even if there's no one else in the home, Link.
It's like Colonel Sanders is here. Like, why does she need to be announced like that? Like, the Duchess of Sussex? Who is that? Who is she? We don't have titles here. Like, when she walks into Soho House, is she like the Duchess of Soho House? We don't do titles here in the United States. But I don't think she was alone in the brownstone. I think all of her other personalities were in the house with her. So maybe they have to announce Megyn, the Duchess of Sussex, is here. But I've never seen someone dine out so hard on their title. I mean, she is dining out. And like, I have friends, they get divorced and they hang on to the last name because maybe the last name was better than the one they had, or they were married to a prominent guy, so they cling to that last name in society. And it's like, Megyn is clinging hard to this Duchess title. She was in the royal family for 18 months. I have stuff in my freezer that's been there 18 years. You know what I'm saying? So she's like, I was in the royal family 18 months and she's calling herself the Duchess of Sussex. She spent 5 hours in Sussex. Okay, that's
and
it.
they hate the royal family. They hate everything it stands for. Why is she running around using that title if all she wanted was, by the way, her privacy? It's weird to see you on the cover of Harper's Bazaar giving your, we want privacy. And you hate the royal family. You think they're a bunch of racists. You think they bullied your husband. Your husband suggested they wanted him to die in his last interview with the BBC, and yet you still want to use their title? It doesn't really track. All right, keeping on here. The absurd writer talks about how when women are in the public eye and they're multi-dimensional, Link, you may not know this is the writer, they tend to get a lot of flack. Right. The press doesn't allow women to be multi-dimensional. This is so bizarre. Like, this is how you get a job at this magazine. Why do you think that is? Megyn asks me. Here, I launch into a tangent about our culture's deep and historical distrust of women's voices in public. You know what I mean? I finally say. Megyn deadpans with, well, yeah. Okay. She's been so difficult for her to get her voice out there, Link, and her $50 million Netflix deal and her Spotify deal and all the other things she's done. Okay. Then she writes, this is great too. Not about Harry, but about H, as she calls him exclusively. She puts her hand on her heart when she talks about her husband. He loves me so boldly, fully, and he also has a different perspective because he sees media that I wouldn't. No one in the world loves me more than him. So I know he's always going to make sure that he has my back. This nonsense, he loves me so boldly, so fully. Okay, cut to the tape of him in her fake World Series celebration, Link, and him staring at Kris Jenner's boobs. I'm starting to feel like he may not love you so boldly and so fully, sister.
Yeah, no, I think his soul is leaving his body. I mean, he just looks like a shell of a man. Like, you know, that man who's just like emasculated and beaten down, and they've kind of thrown in the towel and they're slouched in the big lazy boy chair. Like, that is Prince Harry to me. Okay, he's just acquiesced, and he's in a prison of his own making, right? He is culpable. We always want to blame Meghan Markle, and of course I blame her too. But Prince Harry, you're a grown-ass man, right? You're in charge of your choices. You allowed her to come in and take a wrecking ball to your relationships with your family, to everything going on in the UK. You allowed her to drag you to the US. You didn't live in Hollywood. She wanted to go to Hollywood. So you have her in the driver's seat. You either need to man up and be an alpha and take your life back, or you're going to keep receding like that hairline. That's what's going to keep happening. So we wish you well, Harry.
Truly, it's like, excuse me, Your Highness, where are your balls?
Yeah,
Asking
exactly.
for multiple countries at this point.
I volunteer to look for them because I love a ginger and I love the prince. So I will actually go freaking Indiana Jones and find them. But if Prince Harry wants to escape, okay, we will welcome him with open arms. One of my friends was texting me, my friend Pam Mattingly. She's a huge fan of your show. She texted me, she's like, you should call the customer service line for as ever. Maybe Prince Harry will answer the phone. And I said, if Prince Harry answers the phone, I'm going to say, cough twice if you need out. Okay,
Right.
clear your throat if you need us to come save you.
I'm going to say right now, you would make a much better Duchess of Sussex than Meghan.
Are you kidding me? Oh my God, I'd be an amazing Duchess and Duke. If Prince Harry and I would be an iconic duo.
Totally.
Okay, iconic
I think
duo.
you'd make him very happy. I mean, there's
Yes.
only one way to go right now for him, and that's up. All right, here's the end of the piece. And Meghan Markle manages to work this shit into every profile that's ever done of her. It's cue the random friend saying how smart, fabulous, and better than them she is. Watch her series, look at the interviews. This is her. It's very important to her to have the friend that says she's the best, better than they are. And they do it. Here she got Serena Williams to go out there and say it. The writer expresses the following. Okay. She had a nice childhood with her mother, but as she says, her parenting style is very different from her mother's. She has made it a study using books and apps. Oh, she's so unique in that. She read a parenting book. Oh, no one's ever done that except for Meghan Markle. A diligence, ready for it, Link, that has made her an authority within her friend circle. Quote, she's just so smart, and I feel like no matter what, I can always learn from her, says Serena Williams, right into Meghan's thing. I was always the smart one. You can just hear her behind the scenes telling Serena, please make sure you mention how smart I am. And then it ends as follows. It's nearly time for me to go. Meghan tells me that she'll be having lunch soon with Gloria Steinem, or Glow, as she calls her. You know how when you and I get together, Link, I always make sure before we part to tell you what more important person than you I'm about to see, and also
Thank
my
you.
favorite pet nickname for them.
Yes,
they met
perfect.
during the pandemic. A mutual acquaintance was in their shared pod. I don't even know what that is. Steinem came to Thanksgiving at Meghan's house. Quote, I've just always admired her, she says. Was it her love of abortions, Meghan? Meghan is remarkably at ease with the surrealism of global celebrity. In fact, she seems to enjoy it. Oh, does she? Thank you for that remarkable insight. I never knew, writer Caitlin Greenidge, that Meghan Markle might actually enjoy the surrealism of global celebrity. Hello, it's why she married that ginger. It certainly
Exactly.
wasn't for love of his weirdness and beta role in the royal family.
No, and Meghan Markle, she couches herself as this big humanitarian. She wants to be like this UNICEF woman, Mother Teresa, Princess Diana, traveling the world, bringing tampons to girls in Timbuktu. But then all she does is just slap her name on things. She's selling jams. She's on the cover of elite magazines doing fashion photo shoots, hanging out with Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez, and the Kardashians. She is not this humanitarian woman, and I'm sorry, we have to call her on her BS, right? If you actually cared about young women and girls, you wouldn't need to name drop. You wouldn't need to do all of this. Where's the Netflix reality show on you going and doing that work in Africa? Or what about work here? I'm tired of these celebrities going to Africa. We got people who need help here. Come here and do something, Meghan Markle. But she won't do it because she's phony, and all she actually cares about is being famous. That is it. She wants to be famous. And we're all dancing around the topic. That's really the thesis of the situation. situation. She wants to be a celebrity in any way, shape, or form. Okay.
That's it. That's all. She does not care. And I mean, she would have liked Harry's riches. Like she would have liked it if he had more money, like William will.
Right.
But what she really wanted was global fame. That's it. That's all she wants. And the we want privacy nonsense was always a lie. They don't like negative press,
Right.
but they covet press more than anyone's business, more than anyone I've ever seen. This girl is so
Totally.
driven to see her face in the papers, and Harry is getting dragged along with her. Okay, let's keep going because there is a sea change, a shift among the celebrity culture in Hollywood when
Right.
it comes to body positivity. Now, how many years, Link, were we told that fat is beautiful? That all body sizes are beautiful and we're supposed to love them and celebrate them. And then many of us were like, well, I mean, challenge, but also it's definitely not healthy and should not be something that we're like selling to the next gen as something
Totally.
they should aspire to. And then we would get tissed by the women's magazines and they would hold up people like Amy Schumer or Megyn Trainor or Lizzo as examples of women who are living their best lives and leaning into full-figured, womanhood. And shame on us if we had a judgment about it. Well, now all three of those women have been religiously on the shot. They
Right.
are shadows of their former selves in terms of sizes and figures. Look at this. This is Megyn Trainor. She's unrecognizable here.
I know.
On the right. And all of them do it without acknowledging that they are the ones who lectured us. Megyn Trainor, she first hit the national scene with that All About That Bass.
The bass.
Right. And I just actually, my team, everybody knows that song, but just to remind you, the lyrics are, I ain't no size 2. Yeah, my mama told me, don't worry about your size. She said, boys like a little more booty to hold at night. And no, I won't be some stick figure silicone Barbie doll. So if that's what you're into, go ahead and move along. I'm bringing booty back. Go ahead and tell them skinny bitches that. And then she ends with, every inch of you is perfect from the bottom to the top. Now she's lost some 60 pounds and has reportedly gotten breast implants too. So she actually did want to be a stick figure silicone Barbie doll. She just couldn't figure out how to do it with discipline, exercise, and a diet.
Right.
And once she got her
Totally.
hands on the shot and is a good surgeon, she's like, forget all about that other stuff. Who, me?
Right. No, I think what this is really unmasked is that these Hollywood celebrities are just hypocrites because the whole body positivity movement went out the window. Okay, it was unmasked as a scam the second Ozempic came along. I mean, Lizzo, how many albums did Lizzo do about being a thick girl? And let's hear it for the thick girls and the big girls. Now Lizzo's whole brand is that she's lost the weight. Megyn Trainor, her whole brand now is that she's lost the weight after capitalizing on being this quote unquote thick big girl. So these people are fake. These people are phony. And what I'm reading in the comments, there are these women who say, well, we can't get Ozempic. We've been left behind. We can't just go get the shot, or we can't afford it, or our insurance won't cover it. But these celebrities, they have access to all of these things, personal chefs, trainers, Ozempic. And so Megyn Trainor, I'll also say this too. There are some folks who aren't meant to be stick thin. That might not be your body type, right? You might lose all that weight and now you look like a bobblehead, okay? You look like an egghead. And these celebrities who went and got these massive veneers when they were 500 pounds, now that you're 200 pounds, the veneers look like the big chiclet Joe Biden teeth. You know what I'm
Not
saying?
attractive.
And so you gotta be honest about what your body type is, and you have to actually be transparent. The last thing I'll say is Amy Schumer, we did this on my show. She is one of these women who has lost a ton of weight on Ozempic, and she's been very honest about losing weight on GLP-1s. Well, it's also in Page 6 and being reported that now her husband's gonna leave her because he married her liking her a little bit thick. There are guys who might like some thick girls. Now he's like, this isn't the woman I married. I liked a thick chick. And now she's lost the weight and the husband,
Not only that,
apparently.
she scrubbed her Instagram of her fat photos
What
and
the
tried to
hell is
deny that
that?
like there was a purpose behind that. And also she's out there saying, thanks to Mounjaro and her lost 35 pounds, my hair is fuller, my skin is better, I have more energy, she wants sex more. Okay, then you shouldn't have been telling other women to pack on the pounds with oblivion who are still having shitty hair, shitty skin, low energy, and a bad sex life because of your earlier advice. Shame on you for misleading them. Health, fitness, and a good body actually do lead to those things. You should have been more honest. Gotta run, Link. Great to see you. Thanks for being here.
See you later. Bye. Thank you so much.